Have you ever had rose-colored glasses for a game? By that I mean, have you ever liked a game that a lot of people have really big issues with, and when you look at those issues, you don't really see them? Or even if you do, maybe they're just not that important to you. They bother everyone else and it bothers you a little, but I mean, the rest of the game is so good that you barely even notice. For me, that was definitely Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon. I played this game a little over a year ago for about 70 hours in 3 to 4 weeks. I had known from people that there were issues with the game that, granted, over time bothered me a bit as well, but at the same time, it still cemented its place in my top 20 games of all time. This game had hands down the best writing and storytelling I had ever seen in a board game. And it kind of expanded what I could think story games could do. So when about a year ago, like right after I finished Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon, Tainted Grail Kings of Ruin was announced and subsequently covered by many channels getting to look at the prototype, I was a bit baffled to hear so many people say, I disliked the first game, but I really like this new thing. It addresses all of the issues I had with the first game. And lo and behold, a year later, we get sent Tainted Grail, Kings of Ruin, the prototype. And so as a person who didn't have a lot of issues, I still covered some. If you go and watch my previous videos, I did have some things I disliked. But as a person who really liked the first one, is this game gonna live up to its predecessor for me? I will say, again, this was sent by Awakened Realms, no paid coverage or anything. They just sent it for us to take a look at. And it's only about half of the campaign itself, and so there's only so much that I can say about the campaign as a whole. I mean, one of the things I loved about Tainted Grail, the original, was the endings and how many there were and how all of your choices seemed to really matter. And I'm hoping in the same way that I've covered the beginnings of this, I'll have a fourth video on Tainted Grail. There's 2 different games, so two videos per game, covering the ending when I finally get around to playing it when it fully releases. In case you clicked on this video and you have no idea what the original game was like, I just want to say first and foremost, this is a really great 1 to, I believe, 4 player game of adventure and storytelling and kind of deck crafting. It's not deck building per se, not in the classic deck building game style where you're spending resources from cards to get better cards and it's going to continue to flow like that. You'll be drawing from a deck that you've crafted and explored and upgraded throughout the game of 10 cards in this game specifically, and playing them over the course of any battle that you run into, whether it be a wild encounter with a bear or with a really big, important boss. Most of the game is going to be flipping through this ginormous adventure journal with crazy cool art where you'll be presented choice after choice after choice of what you want to do in each town that you are stopping through. For instance, there was this camp that my character, who's kind of crafty, needed to get through in order to continue on with the story. And so I discovered that there was a bear thing that the town was terrified of, and if they had any hint that the bear was coming to attack their town, they would all probably get out of my way and I could use that as a distraction to leave. In my case, I decided it would be fun to get some fireworks and firecrackers and light it all up and act like that was the attacking monster and run into the town yelling and screaming, saying, "He's here, he's here, he's here." And it was a pretty evil choice, but I pushed it as far as it would let me, and lo and behold, I actually got away with it. That was something exclusive to my character though, and there's multiple different playable characters, and there's a multitude of things I could have done, but I chose that path and it permanently changed the story. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight as to what the game is itself. There's a lot more that I didn't cover. This isn't a game teach, but I do want to get into the comparison. As a person who loved the first one, is the second one an improvement? Does it live up to the hype? Does it live up to the expectations? And what are the differences? What are the differences as a player who enjoyed the first one? First of all, I'll go ahead and point out the one thing that many people absolutely hated about the first game that I tolerated. I even kind of In my video, I said that I home ruled or home brewed a rule because it was so annoying. Like, this is the big thing, right? It's the lighting of these things called menhirs. I always say this wrong. And in the first game, you place a dial on this statue and it holds back this stuff called weirdness, which blocks you from going to the next area. It's essentially, it slows you down to a very, very slow pace, and it really makes you actually look for supplies, explore different cities, and I actually did like that they tried to get you to really stick around in some of these minor areas instead of just running off to whatever it was that was your task that time, because it really made me actually enjoy the small things. I think there's a lot of love poured into Fall of Avalon, and the time stuff made me slow down, but at the same time, it was very, very, very grindy and frustrating. In Kings of Ruin, they've completely done away with those statues, kind of. They're still statues, but they're really easy to light the path, and on top of that, they're permanent. They don't have a little dial on them, and if you or a monster comes by and takes those away, or takes the light away, it's really easy to get back. That leads me to my next point, which is that supplies in this game, which you use to not only light menhirs, but also stay alive because you had to eat every day, and also the energy that you had was very, very limited that you got back at the beginning of each day. It completely revamped that in this game to be a lot more forgiving. You get more energy at the start of each day, especially if you're playing solo. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but in each city, there was a lot more chances to get things that you might need, like food and wealth. On top of that, the energy spent at each location to discover things and maybe talk to a stranger there, a lot of the energy was actually kind of pulled back. And in the Fall of Avalon game, everything you did wasted energy, whether it was something important or whether you discovered that it was something not helpful at all and maybe even hurt you. It used up energy that you had that day, and it was frustrating, but also that was just kind of the game, right? Like it was punishing at times and rewarding for your searching at other times. And in this game, there's a lot more that encourages you to actually go out of your way to look at everything rather than having that fear that it might be something that really hurts you. I wanna touch on that for just a second, because the last three notes I had seem like huge positives for Kings of Ruin, and I would say that they are, but I do just wanna say that, like, the punishing nature of the first game, especially in that way where are you gonna use your energy or not to go in this dark and scary cave? Are you gonna use your energy or not to talk to this hermit who's being kind of creepy? Are you going to use your energy to look through books in this library that may or may not have something helpful? I like that the first game was punishing. Like there was almost like a, I think the best way to describe it is like Dark Souls. If you've played the video game, you know what I'm talking about, where the nature of this game is extremely punishing on purpose, and people like it because of how punishing it is, and it's rewarding when you finally get something good. And if we're going along that analogy of video games, if Fall of Avalon is Dark Souls, then Kings of Ruin is much more like your Skyrim, where everything you're doing is probably going to benefit you down the road, whether it just be through experience or getting you a cool weapon or getting you more supplies, whatever it might be. It rewards the adventurer for going out of their way to look around every corner. So in that way, it's not that one is bad and the other is good. It just depends on your flavor that you like. If you like a much more punishing experience, Kings of Ruin might not be your game of choice. Fall of Avalon might be. Now, granted, you could also make the argument that none of that, what I said, sounds punishing. It sounds way more tedious. And if that is where you're falling, then maybe Kings of Ruin would be way better. As far as what I loved about Fall of Avalon, pretty much all of it is here too. So that's an incredible plus. The writing, still just as good, if not a little better. The variety of characters and how cool they are and how much I want to go back and play some of the ones I missed wasn't there for me in Fall of Avalon. The 4 characters were cool, but there was really only one or two of them that stood out to me. And this one, they're much more unique, their art is incredible, and all of them actually have powers that only they can use, which means that the way I play the game is gonna drastically change every single time I come back to it, whereas every single ability that you can use your experience for in the first game, you could use across characters as long as they had the type of experience needed, the type of skills needed to get that card. I'm gonna throw out a few more things. One, the components in this one, so much better. I love the wooden pieces that they use in certain spots. I love the miniatures and how beautiful they look. I really, really love the adventure journal and the upgrade that it's gotten, and all of this was prototype pieces that I saw. I can only imagine how good the eventual game is that comes out will look. A lot of people have said that the artwork is better. I think it's just as good. It's on par with the original game. I don't want to say anything bad about the original game's artwork because it was awesome. But again, if they're both like 9 to 10s, they're both what can I say? On top of that, boss battles. So much cooler in this game. The minis for them are awesome, but on top of that, it's just way better of a system. It's way more surprising, if I can say that, and I don't want to spoil anything else about that, but just know that there's clearly been a lot of work to make this a much better and more streamlined and nice experience than the first game, even though, again, loved the first game. So with all that said, I just want to end this ramble session with saying that Kings of Ruin is incredible. And if you have not jumped into the original game and a lot of the problems that other people had with the game that I have mentioned, you don't like the sound of either, I would say give Kings of Ruin a chance. If, however, you are up for a grind and also some difficulty, but also a lot of reward for an incredible game, please, please be willing to look at Fall of Avalon as well. But at the same time, like, forget what I'm saying. If you want this new one, this is the better game for sure. And it's only going to raise how much I think of Tainted Grail as a whole. Once again, Awakened Realms, thank you so much for sending us this copy of the prototype to take a look at. I will say, if this game interested you at all, please check out their Pledge Manager, which is closing at the end of September. So you have a little bit of time by the time this video comes out, I think about a week to hop in. But at the same time, I know that eventually it'll probably be available for you to purchase as well. Thank you so much for watching if you stayed all the way to this point. Once again, my name is Doolin and this is Tablenauts. We hope that you'll stick around for future videos to come and maybe even check out our Discord, which has a link in the description below to come and talk to us. It's free to come and talk to us about all the games that we have been playing and what you've been playing as well. We'll see you guys next time. Bye. Once again, Awakened Realms, thank you so much for sending us this review copy. No. Once again, thank you so much, Tainted Grail. No. Once again, so much.